Lord of Mystery. The Return of the Stars Chapter 121-130. Afternoon. Chief Reed took 2 young police officers to the Holy Wind Church. This was his first time assisting a church in handling a case. Although he had heard of thefts happening in various churches before, churches often did not need the police to get involved. They could catch the thieves themselves. The Holy Wind Church is very large, and the wind blowing here is very cool and comfortable. Sheriff Reed stayed in the church for more than 10 minutes before someone came out to receive them. The leader was Bishop Ron. Although he was smiling, Sheriff Reed was keenly aware that Bishop Ron seemed to be in a bad mood, and the smile on his face also had some forced elements. Could it be that the amount of property stolen from Holy Wind Church this time was huge? Good afternoon, Bishop Ron. Good afternoon, Chief Reed. After a brief greeting, Bishop Ron invited Sheriff Reed to sit on a seat at a round table in front of the statue under the steps. The two sat facing each other, and Sheriff Reed began to do business, asking about the events of the crime, the contents of the stolen property, and other more important questions. Although Bishop Ron tried his best to answer, Sheriff Reed could still feel that he was perfunctory, and some of his answers were even inconsistent. He stopped asking and emphasized his tone. Bishop Ron, shouldn't you be more honest in front of God? Sorry, I was thinking about other things just now. Bishop Ron looked nervous and secretly wiped the sweat from his forehead. This kind of guilty conscience and lack of confidence could not escape the eyes of Chief Reed, who had been trained for many years as a police officer. Bishop Ron, I hope you can answer the next question honestly. Bishop Ron nodded, indicating that he would answer the question honestly. Where were you on the night of the crime? Who were you with? Who can testify for you? Bishop Ron was stunned for a moment. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that this was suspicion on him. He couldn't help raising his voice and said, Chief Reed, are you suspecting that I am committing theft? Chief Reed smiled, spread his hands and said, I was just making a little joke. I hope I can focus your attention. This is not funny. Certainly. Chief Reed admitted his mistake with a smile, and then began to ask questions normally. After asking the question, he was going to go to the place where it was stolen and take a look at the scene. Bishop Ron looked nervous and stood in front of him, saying sarcastically, I just remembered that there are still some things that haven't been explained clearly. Bishop Ron, deliberately deceiving the police with false testimony is also a crime. I just remembered it. Bishop Ron comforted Chief Reed and sat down again, and then casually chatted about less important content. At first, Sheriff Reed listened carefully, but the more he listened, the more he felt something was wrong. He listened patiently for a while, and finally chose to interrupt Bishop Ron's nonsense. Bishop Ron, my time is also precious. After handling the matters here, I will seize the time to go back and spend time with my lovely child. He has just been born, and he will definitely hope that his father can always accompany him. Upon hearing the word child, Bishop Ron became nervous instantly, his body stiffened, and his face turned slightly pale, but he still endured it and said in a relaxed tone, Chief Reed, I was just joking. This isn't funny at all, it's a waste of time and has no benefit whatsoever. Sheriff Reed stood up and looked down at Bishop Ron, with undisguised anger in his voice. Yes, it was my lack of consideration. I apologize to you. Bishop Ron said many good words in succession, which finally calmed down Chief Reed's angry mood. At this time, a wisp of wind blew from outside the church window, and the stone eyes of the statue standing on the steps seemed to be opening. Suddenly there was a thunderbolt in the sky outside, the sound was deafening, and then the wind picked up and the rain poured down. Chief Reed couldn't help complaining. I didn't expect that the weather would be thundery and rainy today. I even forgot to bring an umbrella when I went out. I didn't want to go back to see my lovely child all wet. Bishop Ron's expression became much more relaxed and he said with a smile, "We can send you back directly in a carriage." "Thank you so much." Sheriff Reed did not refuse the offer. Soon, 2 other police officers finished exploring the theft scene and came over to report the situation. The rooms of 2 priests were burglarized. The drawers were opened and the cash and some valuables were stolen. The total amount was about 200 gold pounds. Chief Reed nodded. The theft of 200 gold pounds was indeed considered a major theft case. After learning more about the situation and seeing that it was getting late, Chief Reed was ready to go back and deal with the matter again tomorrow. Faced with the considerate carriage service provided by the Holy Wind Church, he did not refuse. After sending Sheriff Reed away, Bishop Ron slumped in his seat, his face pale and cold sweat dripping from his forehead. He is just a bishop who handles ordinary things in Holy Wind Church, not a bishop who has powerful extraordinary power. Facing a father who might be a parasitic descendant of an evil god, he was really under great pressure, especially when Chief Reed showed anger. He was really afraid that Chief Reed would suddenly go berserk and devour him. Fortunately, everything went smoothly and nothing extra happened. "Thank you for your hard work this time." There was a voice coming from behind. Bishop Ron waved his hand and said, "Anything gained?" This Sheriff Reed has no traces of parasites or contamination on his body. He is just a very ordinary father. Bishop Ron rubbed the corners of his eyebrows. Does that mean only that baby has a problem? The Archbishop has followed him personally. The one driving the car. Well, Chief Reed is very proud to have an Archbishop drive for him. The heavy rain is still in the sky, the wind is howling, and the thunder is constantly making noise. Sheriff Reed got off the carriage, held the umbrella he borrowed from the Holy Wind Church, and walked on the muddy ground toward his home. Behind him, Ace Snake, who was in charge of driving this time, raised his eyes and stared at the room by the window on the 2nd floor of the house. According to the information sent back, the newborn baby was in that room. The heavy rain fell on his body, soaking his clothes and making his hair look messy. But he didn't go up or take any drastic action, he just stared quietly. "Little guy, do you see who is back?" Sheriff Reed put away his umbrella and straightened his messy hair before walking into the room and squatting in front of the crib to play with the baby who had just woken up. The baby just sucked his fingers and stared straight at him with a pair of black and white eyes, as if greeting him, showing great interest. "Look, what is this?" Sheriff Reed smiled and took out a rattle from his hand. He rubbed it gently with his hands, and the beads on both sides hit the patterned drumhead, making a bang 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 sound. This was a small toy originally designed by Emperor Russell for his children. It was later spread outside. It is said that children all like the sound of the rattle. The baby opened his mouth and then blew bubbles, which looked very cute. Sheriff Reed took a tissue and gently wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth, and said with a smile, "Your mouth is drooling. Are you hungry? I just fed him not long ago. Our little guy is so cute. I really hope Baron Campbell can give him a suitable name." Sheriff Reed chatted with his lover for a while, and the baby lying in the crib had closed his eyes and fell asleep. When the 2 of them quietly left the room, the sleeping baby opened its eyes and woke up. It still had the same black and white eyes, but at this moment, it revealed an adult-like gaze. He climbed up from the crib and walked to the windowsill with his little feet. A bit tall, not tall enough to open the window. He jumped a little first, but still couldn't reach it. After thinking for a moment, his body floated into the air, and with a tap of his fingers, the window opened. It was windy and rainy outside, and water was pouring in through the open window. The baby came to the window, and the wind and rain that was about to hit his body calmed down and slipped away around the road. After looking around outside through the window, he landed on the carriage that was still standing in the wind and rain, and on the man who was looking on guard. There was a sense of ridicule in the clear black and white eyes. He just glanced briefly and looked at the clouds where wind and thunder gathered in the sky. There was no panic on his face, just calmness and curiosity. After staring for a while, he felt that it was not interesting, so he drifted towards the crib and closed the window again. Under the window, on the carriage, Ace Snake shivered, and his whole body was exuding a biting coldness. In such a windy and rainy day, this feeling made people even more heart-palpitating. What kind of evil god are they? The descendants of the evil god that he had experienced or heard of in the past. They are often born with a strong tendency to destroy, and at the same time they possess frightening power. Because they were born to destroy and destroy. But the evil god's heir just now seemed harmless to humans and animals, and even his parents who were in close contact with it were not harmed. The wisdom and restraint it displays is more like a clone of the evil god than a newly born heir of the evil god. I can't handle this alone, I must ask for help. Ace Snake thought for a moment, drove away in the carriage, leaving only some of the Punishers here to monitor the situation. He now completely believes what the mysterious queen said. This is definitely not an ordinary offspring of the evil god. If you want to solve it, you must ask for a saint, or even an angel. And only the Pope is qualified to decide on this matter. Bernadette also disappeared in the clouds, not acting rashly. She didn't intend to solve this matter by herself. She must wait for the people from the Storm Church who can really solve this matter to come before she can take action. In the Grek villa, Hastur opened the window and looked at the unusual rain outside the window, feeling a little heavy. Sheriff Reed wanted to let him help name his child, but he wanted to kill his child. It sounds too cruel. You really know how to pick people. There are many babies born in Backland every day, but the high-dimensional overlooker can choose Sheriff Reed's child. This is too lucky. Or should we say that everything is arranged by fate? Asta watched for a while, then closed the window, lay on the bed, and entered the Hall of Stars to observe the current state of the high-dimensional observer. This time, he just watched from a distance, so that the high-dimensional observer could not detect his spying. After observing for a while and confirming that the high-dimensional observer had no abnormal behavior, he retracted his gaze and began to think about formulating the third rule. He thought that what he needed more at the moment was the authority of the goddess of night, and it would be best if he could completely conceal his information. For example, if he met Ouroboros in person, he would not let him know that he was related to fate, and if he met the high-dimensional observer on the street, he would not let him discover his abnormality. In this way, it would be safer to go out and walk in the future. Otherwise, there are more and more monsters in Backland. When he has not yet developed, it would be a disaster to meet one. What is the essence of secrecy? What kind of description can accurately point to secrecy? What are the main aspects of information about oneself? Asta began to ponder again. 2 days later, Hastur finally met the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Loan, Agashid Negan, in the study of Grek's villa. He was well maintained, with shallow wrinkles on the corners of his mouth and forehead, and still had thick black hair. Compared with those who were bald at an early age and had lost their figure early, he was in much better condition. "Uncle, this is Baron Hasta Campbell, whom I often mentioned. He is my best friend." Hastur, the man standing in front of you who is still as heroic as ever is the Prime Minister of our kingdom, my uncle Agashid Negan. Grek introduced the two parties enthusiastically. Agushide just nodded slightly, and Asta smiled and said, "Now I understand why our Loan Kingdom's national strength continues to grow, because we have a Prime Minister who is full of wisdom and loyalty, and he works hard for the king every day." Grek said very flatteringly, "Of course. The development of the ironclad ship was the result of my uncle's efforts to persuade the king to build it. This is the most critical step for our Loan Kingdom to conquer the sea." Listening to the flattery of the two juniors, Agashid smiled and waved his hand to tell them not to be so exaggerated, and said kindly, "You are Greg's friend, which means you are a friend of our Negan family. For friends, there is no need for too much courtesy and courtesy." Asta shook his head and said, "You misunderstood, I just truthfully said the most real thoughts in my heart, absolutely without any exaggeration." Although he is not good at flattering others, he can also understand some polite words. Everyone likes to hear nice words, but sometimes as a leader, you must emphasize that you are not allowed to flatter and flatter. But if you really believe it, then you are really stupid. The leader emphasizes the leaders and you continue to flatter yours. As long as the leader does not severely stop you, it proves that he is still very happy in his heart. In this regard, the interpersonal relationship studies of a certain big country can hand in a full score. Agashid smiled and said, "Now you young people are much more promising than we were in the past. We young people still have a lot to learn. If there is anything wrong with the other party in the future, I hope you can give more guidance." After several polite words, Agashid looked at Asta with a much more pleasing look, and said to Greg, "You always say that your friend is too shy and immature. Now it seems that he is already a very mature noble." Greg did not expect Asta's temper to change so quickly, and smiled and said, "Yes, Asta is already a qualified noble, and I will need his help in many places in the future." The three chatted for a while, and Greg arranged a place for drinking and having fun tonight. Agashid rejected this proposal and taught Greg not to be so extravagant next time, and he must maintain the face of their Negan family outside. Greg put on a look of being taught and ashamed, and sent Hasta off the busy Prime Minister. In the hall, Greg sat on the sofa, crossed his legs, and waved a glass of wine around, saying, "It seems that my uncle has not really recognized you yet. After all, it's just the first time we met." Asta understood what Greg meant. If the Prime Minister agreed to go out for a night together, it would prove that he had recognized him. But he didn't agree. Instead, he scolded Greg's arrangement for tonight. What he really meant was that Greg's behavior was too hasty. "Asta, you have really changed a lot now. It was just that there was no need for this before. Knowing is one thing, and actually doing it is another. Yes, I hope you won't regret your choice in the future. There is no way. People always have to grow up. I just hope that one day in the future you won't suddenly feel that I have become a stranger." Greg savored this sentence for a while, drank the wine in the glass, stood up and said with a smile, "Let's go, I have already booked a place tonight. I can't stay at home, call Hibbert too, he has a good impression of you." Asta smiled and said, "I'm afraid that Earl Hall won't let him go out." "It's okay, I have experience in this matter." Asta followed Greg to truly experience the luxurious nightlife of the nobility, but he firmly rejected Greg's final arrangement. Greg said he couldn't let go, and Hibbert commented that he was too innocent. Asta was guilty of these 2 points, but he still had a resistance to such things. Besides, if he really stayed, he felt that he would be the one who suffered. In the end, he left one step ahead of time on the grounds that he didn't want to affect his reputation for the time being. Looking at the time, it was almost 12 o'clock. Asta got on the carriage, thought about it, and went to the Brave Bar. He didn't go to Marich specifically, but just asked for a few glasses of wine to try. Looking at the drinkers who were drinking and chatting loudly, he thought about his next path. If he really took the path of the Black Emperor, many things would be unavoidable. If the person who asked him to stay and play until dawn tonight was the Prime Minister or even the King, how should he refuse? They were not Greg and Hibbert. In their eyes, his refusal was a sign of not giving face and unwillingness to get close. This idea sounds vulgar, but in actual interpersonal communication, especially in the aristocratic circle, this is the truth to get closer. He didn't want to be a lotus that was unstained by mud, he just didn't have that idea. It's easy to fall, but it's hard to control yourself. Asta was quite emotional about the current situation of the Rose School from his own perspective. Desire and control. In fact, in this world, the indulgence doctrine of the mother tree of desire is the mainstream that truly conforms to the times. The control faction like Sharon is the stubborn person who goes against the times. After all, the essence of this world is chaos and madness. Asta had also thought about whether to jump to the judgment path in advance. After all, it is less stressful to act. But even if he wanted to jump, he had to wait until Sequence 5 was promoted to Sequence 4. And when he reached Sequence 1, if this path didn't work, it would be even more difficult to jump from the Judgment path to the Black Emperor path. Perhaps acting is to let the Beyonders know and become a different self. Asta thought a lot, and finally gave himself a two-word comment: hypocritical. Fortunately, there are other ways to get closer, such as giving gifts. It's not troublesome, it's just a waste of gold pounds. Why hasn't Admiral Hurricane come to Backland yet? Asta thought of the pirate admiral who dared to assassinate Duke Negan in the original book. If he stopped him from assassinating Duke Negan, it would be easy to get closer to the Negan family. Late at night, a ship docked, and a figure passed through the port and went to Backland secretly. The undulating waves of the Sonia Sea lifted up a blue Avenger. The ship was sometimes thrown high and sometimes rolled up. The magical thing was that it showed no signs of being overturned by the sea. Alger Wilson stood in the captain's room, looking in the direction of Backland, and walked back and forth a few steps. Finally, he made a decision and murmured, "Keelingus, don't blame me for being cruel. As long as you don't die, I will always be threatened by you, and I can't enjoy the secrets there alone." He decided that next Monday, he would seek the help of Mr. Fool at the Tarot Club, and he could also ask Miss Justice for a favor. He must strangle Keelingus in Backland. Grelint's house. Asta, Audrey, and Hugh came here again for a gathering. This time, it was mainly Hugh who strongly requested the gathering, saying that there was an emergency that needed help. After she discussed with Grelint contacted Asta and Audrey. As soon as Asta came, he saw Hugh's anxious look, and knew that something must have happened to Furs. The cause might be that the night when the superstar overlord attacked, the crimson moon shone brightly, affecting Furs. Seeing that everyone had come and sat down, Hugh took a deep breath, calmed down, and told what had happened in the past few days. On that night of the starry sky, Furs was affected by the whispers of the full moon far more than before. Although he finally relied on his willpower to overcome the difficulties, his body and mind had been seriously damaged and could not recover in a short time. And there were less than 3 days left before the next full moon. With Furs's current state, he would definitely not be able to withstand the influence of the whispers of the full moon. Zio has also attended many extraordinary gatherings, but she has not found a suitable solution. In the end, she placed her hope on Hastur. Among the people she knows, Hastur has extremely profound extraordinary knowledge, and he is a bit mysterious, so he may know how to save Furs. After the three of them heard it, Grelint first thought of the medicine he developed, but those medicines can only help regulate Furs's body, and cannot solve the full moon whispering. That is a spiritual impact, and his medicine is temporarily ineffective. Audrey felt sorry for Furs's experience after hearing it. Just listening to Zio's story, she couldn't help but sweat for Furs, fearing that she would not be able to hold on. When she heard that Furs finally resisted, she was relieved, but she was also afraid. Fortunately, she became an extraordinary person and did not have the serious sequelae of Furs. What is the full moon whispering? Just listening to the description, you know it is very ominous. I wonder what way Mr. Fool will solve Furs's problem. Audrey thought about the people she knew, and besides Mr. Hastur, only Mr. Fool might know the solution. Later, if Hastur didn't have a solution, she would seek Mr. Fool's help at the Tarot Club on Monday. Maybe, she could add a new member to the Tarot Club. Facing the hopes of Hugh and Audrey, Hasta pondered for a long time before saying, "There is indeed a solution to the full moon whispering, but the conditions are a bit harsh." Hearing that there was a solution, Hugh was so excited that she almost stood up. Her eyes were red, and she tried to calm herself down. "What is the solution? Based on your description, I guess this so-called full moon whispering should be an influence exerted by the same high sequence on the low sequence beyonders." Hasta did not mention the existence of Mr. Men, nor did he mention the curse of the Abraham family, but changed his statement. To eliminate this influence, I think there are two feasible methods. The first is to find extraordinary items that can isolate the influence of the outside world, and the sequence cannot be too low, and the side effects cannot be too great. The second method is to seek help from powerful beings, such as the seven gods, or the ancient awakeners. Shu listened with hope, and then turned from hope to frustration, thinking that both methods were too difficult. In a short period of time, she could not find extraordinary items that could isolate the influence of the outside world. This kind of thing is a good thing to save life, which is equivalent to the second life of extraordinary people. No one would sell it, and the sequence must not be too low. With the influence that Furs suffered, the extraordinary items must be at least equivalent to sequence 6 or above. She and Furs have tried the second method. In order to resist the full moon whispering, each of the seven gods prayed devoutly with hope, but in the end no god responded to their prayers. "I can't do it. It's too difficult," Shu told her attempts during this period and the scarcity of extraordinary items. "Do you want to try my medicine?" Braylent whispered. Zio shook his head and said, "Those medicines can only regulate the body, but cannot solve the problem of full moon mumbling." Audrey thought for a moment, then set her eyes on Asta, and said firmly, "I believe that Mr. Asta proposed such a method, and there must be a place where he can help." Zio's eyes rekindled hope. Asta sighed softly, "I don't know any ancient existence, but I have a friend who knows. If Furs finally makes a decision, I will help ask. In front of life, all rules and constraints are not so important." Zio bit his lower lip slightly, and his firm eyes had made a decision for Furs. Even if he believed in an evil god, as long as he could keep Furs alive, it would not be a big deal. Aren't the Aurora Society and the Witch Sect still active? Only Furs can make a decision on this matter. Asta glanced at Zio with a deep meaning. He had already given a choice. If Furs agreed, he would guide Furs to become a believer of the stars. As for whether Furs would join the Tarot Club in the future, he would not interfere. After all, the Tarot Club is full of traitors, and even Miss Justice later learned to be an undercover agent in the Psychological Alchemy Club. Shu said confidently, "I believe Furs will definitely make the wisest choice." After the problem was solved, Asta talked about some relatively simple extraordinary knowledge. As for the strange phenomenon in the starry sky that night, he did not talk about it. After the party, Asta followed Zio to where she and Furs lived. Before getting on the carriage, Asta specifically reminded that no matter who he met, he should not stop the carriage. He did not want to see Sheriff Reed holding his child in front of him as soon as he stopped. Zio felt a little puzzled, but did not say anything. The carriage went unimpeded all the way and took more than 20 minutes to reach Zio and Furs's residence. The place where the two of them lived had a decent hall, a bathroom, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a small balcony for drying clothes. The environment here was average, and it was a bit noisy when the windows and doors were opened. The only convenient thing was that it was very close to the place where they could buy groceries. For Zio and Furs who cooked and ate by themselves, this was the greatest convenience. Zio knocked on the door first, reminding Furs, who was resting in the room, that there was a guest coming, and asked her to tidy up her appearance. After getting Furs's approval, Zio opened the door. Asta followed Zio in and naturally glanced at Fur's bedroom. The room was not big, only about half the size of his own study. After placing a bed and a wardrobe, there was not much free space. The overall decoration of the room was very simple. The small bed was square. In addition to a quilt and 2 pillows, there were only dozens of books on the bedside table. This was in line with Fur's personality and profession. At this time, Furs lay quietly on the bed, with 2 pillows leaning against each other, allowing her upper body to lean slightly. Her face was pale, and although she had just combed it a little, her hair was still a little messy. Her eyes were slightly swollen, empty, without much color, as if she had lost her spirituality. Zio sat directly on the edge of the bed, glanced at Asta who had nowhere to sit, and said apologetically, "Mr. Asta, I need to inconvenience you for a while." Asta said that he didn't care about this little thing, and asked about Fur's current condition first. Fortunately, although Furs was physically and mentally exhausted, she was not yet in a state of emptiness and dementia. It was just that her spirit was greatly traumatized and needed to be slowly recuperated. In her current state, she would definitely not be able to survive the next full moon delirium. Zio has explained the problem to you. Now you need to make your own decision. Once you make a choice, you may not have a chance to join the 7 major Orthodox churches in the future. Asta thought it would be better to make it clear, so that Furs would not regret it in the future. Furs smiled bitterly and said weakly, "I am not afraid of any worse results." "Okay, I will write a prescription for you right away." Asta asked Zio to get paper and pen, and then wrote a few paragraphs on the small table that Furs often used to write. After writing, Hasta reminded, "You need to use the ancient Hermetic language for the spell to be effective. It is best to recite it around 11 o'clock in the evening for better results. Remember to burn it after reading it. It is best not to spread this matter, otherwise it will cause trouble for my friend. Finally, I send you my blessings. Ms. Furs will be far away from pain." After doing what he should do, Hasta did not stay here for long. Hugh sent Hasta out and got on the carriage and left. In the room, Furs was looking at the content written on the paper. "The master of chaos and order. The origin of all rules in the starry sky. The one who returns the stars. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories." On the carriage ride back home to Queens, Hasta placed his cane across his knees and tapped his fingers on it. He felt that what he did tonight was a bit risky. He didn't think that Zio and 4C would tell anyone about what happened tonight, but some things easily left traces once they were done. He also thought about asking Bernadette to come to preach and guide 4C to join the stars, but Bernadette is currently busy dealing with the matter of the high-dimensional overlooker and can't get away for the time being, so he can only go into battle in person. "After I go back, I will forge a book and disrupt the spells of the stars in it. If anyone notices me in the future, I will use this as an excuse." Asta made a decision in his mind and looked at the window covered by the car curtain, but still did not choose to open the window for ventilation. He didn't want to suddenly catch a glimpse of someone he didn't want to see. The carriage continued to move forward, and Hasta suddenly said, "Let's go to Viscount Greylant's house first. I remembered that there are some things that have not been dealt with." "I obey your instructions," the coachman responded, and the carriage turned in a different direction, not returning to Queens tonight. The target is out. Do we need to send someone to intercept?" "No need for now, just follow me from a distance. The target has already got on the carriage and is looking at the direction. It should be heading to Queens. Let our men follow them in a carriage. Remember not to act without authorization and must wait for orders." The team of Punishers stationed downstairs under Sheriff Reed began to take action. In the carriage, Sergeant Reed, with a smile on his face, stretched out his hand to tease the baby lying in his lover's arms. He liked to pull away the fingers that put the baby in his mouth, and then watched him put his fingers back in and start sucking. Repeat this action and enjoy it. Is Lord Campbell at home today? Maybe. After all, he has been out for several days. Calculating the time, he should be back soon. Sheriff Reed thought for a moment and smiled. It's okay if you're not at home. We just happened to take our little guy out for a walk. Fortunately, the sun is not hot these days and the wind is very comfortable. Queens, are things there too expensive? Don't worry, we only buy some small toys, it won't cost much. The carriage moved forward slowly and soon came to Queens, where Hasta lived. Sheriff Reed asked his lover and children to wait in the car. He arranged his clothes to make sure there would be nothing rude before he got out of the carriage and went to visit. He was soon told that Hasta was not at home now and that it might be several days before he returned. Sheriff Reed felt sorry, but did not force anything. He just asked the servant responsible for guarding the door to help convey a few words. Returning to the carriage, Sheriff Reed smiled and said, "Unfortunately, Baron Campbell has been away from home recently. He may have returned to his territory. What's our child's name? You can give him a nickname first, and then give him a proper name later." "That's fine, I've been thinking about this issue recently, and I've thought of a lot of good names." Sheriff Reed laughed, "Me too." The carriage turned a corner and headed towards the busier commercial street in Queens. It wasn't until after 5 o'clock in the evening that the carriage turned back from Queens. After getting off the carriage, Sheriff Reed carefully held the child who had fallen asleep, took his lover upstairs, and returned to his house. Just as I opened the door to the house, I saw a strange figure sitting on the sofa in the living room. Chief Reed wanted to step forward and take a closer look, but felt that the other person's face was covered with a layer of fog, making it impossible to see clearly. When he wanted to say hello, he suddenly realized that the child in his arms had suddenly disappeared. He wanted to shout loudly, but couldn't say a word. A cloud seemed to rise around him, and his consciousness gradually became blurred, and then he fell asleep. Sheriff Reed's lover also fell asleep. In the living room of the real world, the baby opened its black and white eyes, stepped on its little feet, and curiously looked at the figure sitting on the sofa, not afraid at all. "The storm will punish all evil." The figure shouted loudly, and countless golden lightning patterns appeared on the walls inside the house, turning into lightning whips. On the ground, the floor cracked, revealing countless gears inside, layer upon layer, forming a powerful binding force. The baby stood still, with a rare look of anger in his beautiful eyes. With a cry, the surrounding space world shattered, countless golden lightning whips turned into light spots and scattered, and the floor was turned upside down. His little tender fingers pointed out from the air, and the surrounding space changed several times. The members of the Punishers who were originally ambushing outside the house fell to the ground silently one by one. There were no wounds on their bodies, but they had lost all breath of life, because their fragile brains were taken away at that moment. In front of that baby, their brains were exposed, losing the protection of their skulls and heads. They could be touched with just a hand, and with a little force, the brains would shatter. The finger also pointed at the figure sitting on the sofa, but to no effect. The other person's brain was surrounded by a golden electric circle. It takes some effort to break through. It's a pity that he is just a baby, and his fingers are not that strong yet, so he can only flick the periphery of the golden electric circle. The golden electric circle swayed, and the figure was also knocked away. At this time, hundreds of dark green pea vines fell from the sky, and the pea vines also grew lushly on the ground. In just the blink of an eye, the baby was imprisoned in the cage of the pea vines. High above the house, a storm gathered, and the black clouds were as thick as insoluble ink. The lightning that had been brewing for a long time finally descended with the momentum of destroying everything. Inside the house, the baby's eyes were a little more serious. He took a small step inside the cage, and then his figure appeared outside the cage. At this time, the surrounding space solidified, and a small iron cage turned into an inverted pyramid structure and pressed down. With the tower tip pointing upward, the square base of the tower pressed firmly on the baby's head. The thunder that descended from the sky hit the tip of the inverted pyramid at this moment, followed the pyramid, and poured into the world around the baby. Silver-white lightning was raging crazily, and the bright and hard-to-see thunder light reflected the surrounding area into a sea of thunder. The baby was hit hard as never before and let out a cry. The surrounding space turned upside down and moved left and right, and the people inside this range. The body was neatly cut into countless petals, and he died quietly, painlessly and without itching. Not just people, but everything within the scope. Vines, inverted pyramids, buildings, trees, and even the streets, a stray cat jumping up and chasing butterflies, and a grass that has just sprouted. Everything is divided. Sleep, rest in peace, you need to sleep, you need to have a good sleep. The gentle voice sounded, and the baby's eyelids were heavy, unable to resist the sleepiness coming from the depths of his soul. He's still a baby and he needs sleep, long stretches of sleep. Finally, the baby's eyelids closed, his breathing stabilized, and the surrounding space returned to normal at this moment. Deep in the sky, the thunder that had been brewing descended crazily, all pouring onto the baby. But most of the lightning bolts were automatically transferred to different spaces when they got close to the baby. At this moment, there was lightning flashing everywhere in Backland. Pedestrians walking on the road were struck by lightning for no apparent reason and burned to ashes. A family was gathering together for dinner when a bolt of lightning broke out in the room, causing a large fire. The moving steam train was struck by several bolts of lightning, the iron sheet was pierced, and it exploded into several pieces. The birds flying over Backland fell from the sky like raindrops. At this moment, fires broke out in many areas of Backland. Fortunately, the sky was covered with dark clouds and heavy rain soon fell, effectively suppressing the spread of the fire. The baby was hit hard again, and its young and fair skin was now burned into black charcoal, and its body was split with hundreds of tiny lightning cracks. Although the injury was serious, not a drop of blood flowed out, and there was no panic or nervousness in those eyes, but only calmness. He did not take action again, but took the initiative to explode his body, which was on the verge of collapse, leaving only a pair of glowing white eyeballs, like white crystal stones, suspended in the air. Those eyes swept around quietly, as if they looked through the entire world. In this world, every living being has a strange feeling of being spied on at this time. Soon, the eyeballs emitting white light automatically merged into the depths of the space and disappeared. Even if the thunder baptizes all the nearby space, it cannot find and destroy those eyes. In the end, everything settled, and only the black clouds high in the sky still enveloped Backland. Together with the strong wind, it brought a storm that dispelled and purified all the filth. Graylint's house. Hastur looked at the sky outside through the window. He knew that Bernadette had joined forces with the Church of Storms to take action. Even the Church of the Goddess of Night and the Church of Steam and Machinery may have members participating in this battle. Asta, do you think this rain is coming out of nowhere? Beside him, Graylint still had strong fear on his face. Just now, Graylint was almost hit by a bolt of lightning that appeared out of thin air. Fortunately, the lightning just passed over his head and did not hit him. The only thing that was damaged was his hair. It's true that something was wrong, but it's over. Hastur replied with a smile and explained to Graylint that he was leaving. He has rested here for the whole night, and the matter with the high-dimensional overlooker has been temporarily over, so it is time for him to go back. I just don't know what's going on with Sheriff Reed. Maybe there is no longer Chief Reed. When Hastur returned home, Butler Negan came to report who had come to see him in the past few days. Hearing that Sheriff Reed had come to his house in person this morning and brought his child to see him, Hasta could not help but feel frightened. Fortunately, he suddenly felt something was wrong that night and chose to return to Grallant's house and rest for a night. He did not come back until Bernadette and the others finished their operation. If he had come back last night, wouldn't he have met Sheriff Reed? As soon as they met, Sheriff Reed would probably ask him to name his child, and he would inevitably meet the high-dimensional overlooker. Fortunately, he was worthy of being the darling of fate and successfully escaped. In addition to Sheriff Reed, Marich also came to see him, probably wanting to talk to him about what they had been doing outside during this period. And Earl Richard had also come to visit, probably about the god in his dream again. After understanding these things, Hasta returned to the study, found a book that recorded mystical knowledge, and tried to dismantle and integrate the information of the stars. If someone really came to me for helping furs, this book could be a more reasonable excuse. It was a safer backup plan. I looked at the time and it was not too late. Hasta went to the bathroom to take a shower, then had a midnight snack before returning to the bedroom to rest. As soon as he lay on the bed, he entered the Hall of Stars. He first found the star where the high-dimensional observer was. Except for the light cocoon that remained unchanged, the baby originally connected by the silk thread below had disappeared, replaced by a pair of eyeballs forged like white crystals. Those eyeballs were hidden in the depths of the chaotic space-time latitudes in the sky, looking down at the entire Earth from a high altitude. It was like an observer, observing everything that could be observed. That should be the extraordinary item formed after the baby died, right? He really deserves to be a high-dimensional observer. The extraordinary item formed after death turned out to be a pair of eyeballs, which really fits his position. Hasta observed for a while before retracting his gaze, his face slightly solemn. Although it is not clear how wide the scope of the eyeballs can be, it is thought that it must be the size of Backland. Perhaps all areas of the entire northern continent are within its observation range, even including the southern continent. Facing the possible gaze of the high-dimensional overlooker, he needs to formulate the relevant secret authority as soon as possible to hide himself and prevent the high-dimensional overlooker from discovering the specialness of himself. In order to formulate the rules involving secret authority more quickly, Hasta decided to be more straightforward. He produced a pen in his right hand and wrote what he wanted to write on the materialized paper first. He will hide all information about himself. No one can peek into his existence. Everything about him is unknown. Everything about him cannot be peeked. He is a ghost hidden behind the curtain. Walking in the world, no one can see his true identity. He is the indescribable one. He wrote down the descriptive sentences that he thought were related to the secret authority in one breath. Hasta stopped writing, read it from beginning to end, and his eyes fell on the last sentence. He is the indescribable one. This was my truest thought at the time. It fits the definition of the indescribable, which is to be secretive and not let people see the real me. Because the meaning of indescribable is, it cannot be described in words, referring to things that are extremely complex and subtle and cannot be described. The indescribable. Hasta. The king in yellow. Asta frowned, although his original intention was not to do so, but after going around in circles, it seemed that everything returned to the starting point. Is this the most suitable fate for myself? Asta murmured, with a little helplessness on his face. Even if he deleted this sentence about the indescribable, wouldn't the previous bunch of directional descriptions also refer to the indescribable? Moreover, the practice of deceiving oneself has no effect, but instead exposes one's guilt and lack of confidence. Since it cannot be avoided, then accept it, accept your fate, and then face it. There seems to be a voice deep in my heart that is also persuading me. No, I still have to defeat it. Asta strengthened his heart. Instead of deceiving himself, it is better to face this fate and defeat it. Although he might end up with a mantis trying to stop a chariot, at least he had raised his arms. He closed his eyes, pondered for a moment, and then stretched out his hand to summon the third chain of order. Under the gaze of the stars, Hasta Campbell, a traveler from another world, the last heir of the Campbell family. He will keep all information about himself secret. Everything about him is unknown. Everything about him cannot be seen. He is a ghost hidden behind the curtain. He is an indescribable person walking in the world. This rule is fair and reasonable, and will not be changed by any external factors. When this rule was imprinted on the chain of order, the Hall of Stars trembled slightly, and the light of the stars gathered and merged into the chain of order. As the light of the stars became brighter, the chain of order itself gradually became virtual and dim, until it could not be observed at all. Except for the light of the stars still flickering, the third chain of order could no longer be seen as far as the eye could see. Asta slowly closed his eyes, and the chain of order was still in its original position. But once he opened his eyes, he could no longer sense its existence. If he was not the master of the Hall of Stars, he could not sense its existence even if he closed his eyes. Because it was completely hidden, it would no longer be peeked at. It was the chain of order, and also the chain of secrecy. The aura of the entire Hall of Stars also changed. Originally, Asta could still clearly sense the changes in the aura here, such as the aura of the stars, the aura of fate, the aura of rules. But at this moment, he could no longer sense anything here, as if it was empty, and as if it contained everything. If he had already formulated this rule before the lamp god, the mother tree of desire, and the superstar lord came to the Hall of Stars, then they would not be able to get any information from the Hall of Stars. They could only guess that all this might be related to the power of the stars, and they could not be sure at all. Asta silently felt all the changes. After waiting for a while, the third chain of order merged into his body silently, without any change, as if nothing had happened. With the experience of the previous 2 times, Hasta guessed that even in the real world, his body would not change at all. Because the third chain of order did not bring any change, but secrecy, hiding everything. Of course, the chain of order can only exert its true power in the Hall of Stars. In the real world, limited by his own strength, he was only at sequence 7. If he encountered a true god descending and appeared in front of him, his secrecy would be useless. But if it was a gaze from the starry sky, would it be impossible to spy on his background? Just like the eyeballs left by the high-dimensional overlooker, I should be able to block its prying now, right? It may get nothing, or it may only get a false message. Those who cannot be named, cannot be described, and cannot see their true face. In the study, the wind chimes hanging on the window made a crisp sound, and the 1,000 paper cranes strung on it swayed gently. Finally, under the word, "Come quickly," written on the paper crane, a new line of words appeared. What did you encounter? Will, who was lying on the bed and preparing to sleep, wanted to talk to Asta about what happened today through his dream. But suddenly he found that he could no longer sense Asta's existence through the paper crane, let alone directly enter his dream to chat with him. Based on what happened in the past 2 days, he didn't think that Asta would be in trouble. This situation was most likely caused by some changes in Asta. This change helped him block his own senses, hidden authority. Will's eyelids twitched slightly, and he remembered that Asta seemed to have the extraordinary ability of the path of destiny. Young people nowadays are really terrible. Will sighed, pulled up the small quilt, turned sideways, and continued to sleep. Now, only if Asta contacts him through the paper crane and actively guides him can he enter Asta's dream. The Hall of Stars. After Asta made the new rules, he did not choose to leave. He was waiting for Furs to recite the spell on the paper. Around 11:30, an illusory light appeared under the starry sky. With Furz's current strength, she was far from being able to become a star on the dome. She was just an insignificant light point, and a light press of the index finger could extinguish her light. In the poor house of Zio and Furz, the pale Furz held the bed handle and barely stood by the bed, reciting the spell on the paper that could bring hope word by word. The master of chaos and order. The origin of all rules in the starry sky. The return of the stars. When she finished reciting in the ancient Hermes language, after waiting for a few seconds, a starry sky suddenly bloomed at the roof. The stars twinkled in the starry sky, shedding brilliant and warm starlight. The bright starlight was limited to this house, just as the stars at this moment only favored her. Has a miracle really come? Furz stood there, staring blankly at the starry sky above her head. In her limited knowledge of mysticism, there is a very useful life-saving rule. That is not to pray for help from mysterious beings other than the seven gods. Once you chant their full names, it is easy to attract the gazes of those mysterious beings, and then there is a high probability that extremely tragic things will happen. Because most of those mysterious beings are disguised by evil gods and demons. While they respond to your prayers, they will also take the opportunity to take away your soul and life. Doing business with demons, death is just the beginning. At this moment, as she watched, a mysterious and magnificent palace appeared in the starry sky above her head. In that palace, sat a phantom whose specific face could not be seen. He seemed to be made of stars, without any ominous, evil breath, but only sacredness and warmth. Furz opened her mouth, and for a moment she didn't know what to say. She wanted to bend down to worship to show her piety, but found that her whole body had frozen, and even her breathing was intermittent. She was afraid, excited, and delighted. Respected Star Returner. Good evening. After being stunned for a long time, Furz gradually regained her sanity. As soon as she opened her mouth, she felt ashamed and wanted to bang her head against the wall. What good evening. That was an ancient existence, and her first words were such a greeting. Don't be nervous, the stars will not blame any devout believer. In the Hall of Stars, Hastur resisted the urge to laugh and tried to speak in a calm tone to maintain his mysterious, powerful and omnipotent image. Furz's nervous mood was relieved immediately. She bent down and said in a trembling voice, I confess to you that I was not a believer of the stars before tonight. I just read out your full name because I wanted to seek your help. I hope you can give me the gift to fight against the whispers of the full moon. You are very honest, and honesty is a valuable virtue. Now, are you willing to become a believer of the stars? Furz lowered her head and said, yes. Emperor Russell once said, there is no free bread in the world. If you want to seek help and protection from the existence in front of you, then offering your faith is already the most insignificant price you pay. Under the light of the stars, the full moon will also be eclipsed. Whenever the full moon comes, you can get the protection of the stars by chanting your name. Thank you for the protection of the stars. Furz's thanks were absolutely sincere. No matter what mysterious existence the other party is, as long as it can save your life, it is a worthy existence for you to be grateful for. Asta didn't say anything else. After thinking for a while, he used the power of the Hall of Stars to guide the starlight into Furz's body, trying to help her recover from her severe injuries. As for whether it would work, he didn't dare to guarantee it. This was just an attempt. It could also be regarded as a baptism from the stars. Furz was surprised at first, and then hurriedly thanked the stars for their blessing. Her originally pale face gradually turned rosy, and her injured body seemed to be bathed in warm water and nourished in the warmth. When the starlight dissipated, Furz felt that her seriously ill body seemed to have transformed and reborn. Her weak spirit did not feel any pain at this moment. The stars will always watch you. After Asta finished speaking, he directly cut off the connection with Furz. The hall of stars gradually dissipated along with the bright starry sky. The sky above the roof once again returned to its usual darkness. Furs was silent for a long time before she clenched her fist and shouted happily, "Shoo! I have been blessed by the stars." Shoo, who had been waiting outside the door and was nervous, heard Furs' happy voice from inside the room, hurriedly opened the door, and walked quickly to Furs' side. After looking at her body everywhere, he put down his worries and said, "Fortunately, all parts are intact, and there are no missing arms or legs. Don't worry, I know my body well, and now I have recovered my former health." Shu was stunned and said, "Is the effect so obvious? I do feel very comfortable, and I don't have the breathless and weak feeling before." Furs carefully felt her body and did not feel anything wrong. Shu also touched Furs's various parts, and when her hand touched Furs's cheek, she exclaimed, "Furs, has your skin become whiter and tenderer?" "Really?" Furs was overjoyed, and just as she was about to reach out and touch her cheek, she was stopped by Shu. "I was just kidding you, do you really think your skin has become whiter? Damn it, you made me happy for nothing." After some laughter and joking, Zio sighed and said, "Did you really communicate with that mysterious being just now? Well, listen to me and I will tell you slowly. The next day, after finishing breakfast, Hasta went to the study to open the window for ventilation and saw Will's message on the paper crane. He thought about it, picked up the pen and wrote on the paper, "Guess. Even Will who lives in Backland can be blocked, so we don't have to worry about the peeping eyes of the high-dimensional overlooker, right?" Asta subconsciously looked up at the sky. Yesterday's heavy rain lasted until early morning. The air in Backland today is much cleaner than before, and the air quality has also been significantly improved. If the extraordinaries of the Church of Storms could summon a storm to wash the sky every day, then Backland's air quality should be several levels better. This is a major event that benefits the entire people of Backland. After waiting for about half an hour, Will's new message appeared on the paper crane, an angry expression holding a knife and fork. Asta smiled and untied the paper crane, placed it on the palm of his hand, and then returned to the bedroom. Not long after he fell asleep, Will came to his dreamland. Will first looked Hasta up and down, and then sighed, "If I hadn't known that nothing happened to you, I would have thought that you were completely crushed by something, without even letting go of a breath. Just learn a little trick to cover up your breath." Will curled his lips and said, "What little method can involve the secret power of the night? You seem to be very afraid of hidden authority." "Nonsense, you can completely hide yourself without fear of being plotted or spied on. This kind of ability is something I am afraid of." Will rolled his eyes at Hasta and did not continue to ask about the matter. Instead, he said, "I came to you last night to remind you that Bernadette may be promoted to Sequence 2 in this incident. If she is still in Backland, and if you meet her again, it will be easy to see what is special about her. If I had known that you already had a countermeasure, I wouldn't have bothered to remind you. Secret authority is such a good thing. Will is both fearful and covetous of hidden powers. If he holds the Wheel of Fortune in his left hand and the hidden powers in his right hand, he can basically see the secrets of all gods." Asta thought for a moment and said, "I will ask someone to send you double the ice cream to thank you for reminding you this time." "That's right. Young people should have this kind of awareness." Will's eyes narrowed, obviously satisfied with Hasta's knowledge. "Has the matter of the high-dimensional overlookers been completely resolved?" "Roughly the same." Will took 2 steps, supported his chin with his right hand and said, "Actually, with his status, the authority and power shown yesterday should be more terrifying, but it always feels like an anticlimax. Hasta also feels this way. After all, the high-dimensional overlooker was born into Backland too quickly, and the superstar ruler next door still needs the help of the Mother Tree of Desire. A bluff. It should have something to do with his authority." Will obviously got a glimpse of part of the authority of the high-dimensional overlooker from yesterday's battle. Hasta motioned for Will to continue. Higher dimensions, time and space, projection. He is at a higher latitude. He sees us just like we see the characters in the painting, and even we are just an imperceptible point in the painting. When the latitude space undergoes drastic changes, he can even manipulate time. He did not use this ability yesterday. Maybe it was too restrictive. People will form shadows when illuminated by the sun. Perhaps low latitudes themselves are projections of high latitudes, so he can use his authority to drop a ray of his own consciousness from the depths of the starry sky, or incarnate a shadow. Will seriously talked about his new understanding of the high-dimensional overlookers. Hasta benefited a lot from this, thinking of the thread beneath the cocoon of light. If a silk thread represents a projection, then judging from the size of that light cocoon and the silk threads wrapped around its body, a high-dimensional overlooker may be able to cast thousands of shadow clones at one time. Isn't this equivalent to an enhanced version of Aemon? Hasta's heart trembled, and at the same time he couldn't help imagining what would happen when the high-dimensional overlooker met Aemon. Will there be a competition to see who has more clones? A bunch of people here are Aemon, and a bunch of people over there are high-dimensional overlookers. Here is a monocle of pure color, and over there is a white platinum eyeball. Hasta stopped this terrible imagination and considered it. Tell me, is it possible for a high-dimensional overlooker to give birth to multiple shadow incarnations at once? Of course. With his status, it is not difficult to do such a thing. After Will answered, he thought of something and said with a smile, "If that's the case, you don't have to worry so much. When strength is combined, it gathers, and when divided, it disperses." If he really sent down dozens or hundreds of shadow clones, his power would probably be around sequence 2. After all, this is not a starry sky. It's really interesting to be able to face off against that annoying guy Aemon. I can't wait to see that scene. Hasta was speechless. Will obviously enjoyed watching the fun more than he did. Chapter 127 Ints Zangwill and 008 Tarot Club. As usual, Klein arrived at Saphira Castle in advance, and then summoned Miss Justice and Mr. Hanged Man to come for a meeting. Mr. Fool, good afternoon. Mr. Hanged Man, good afternoon. Miss Justice Audrey still greeted enthusiastically, and she was in a good mood. Because after the last party that Zio strongly requested, she bought 2 original copies of Rissel's diary from Mr. Asta, and Mr. Asta gave her 2 handwritten diaries for free. There were 4 Rissel diaries in total, and she could make a small request to Mr. Fool. Originally, she wanted to leave this opportunity to Ms. Furs, but Mr. Asta had successfully solved the problem of Furs's full moon mumbling. Her small request could be saved and left for her own use. The Hanged Man Alger's mood was obviously not as relaxed and happy as Audrey's, but was full of contradictions and entanglements. Klein glanced at them first, and then began to read the 2 Rissel diaries that Audrey handed over. One of them was obviously just the daily life of Emperor Rissel. After reading it, he gained nothing except sighing and slightly despising Rissel's romantic affairs. The second Rissel diary recorded a lot of important content. On March 6, I chatted with Mr. Men, who had nothing to do, as usual. This time he mentioned a diary called The Antigonus Family. This is a high-sequence item that can affect the extraordinary people of the diviner path, and it has magical and terrible magic. Mr. Men said that this notebook is to guide the extraordinary people of the diviner path to death, and this is also the inevitable fate of the extraordinary people of the diviner path. Klein's heart surged when he saw this. The Antigonus diary mentioned in Rissel's diary, this magical thing, is inextricably linked to himself. And he chose to become an extraordinary person of the diviner path. All this seems too coincidental, as if it was arranged by someone. Coincidence? Arrangement? Klein couldn't help but think of a diary of Russell he had read before, which mentioned a magical pen that could create all kinds of coincidences and make the arranged stories play out in the real world. Could it be that he had become a character in that pen? Playing out a story that had already been arranged by someone? The more Klein thought about it, the more he felt that this was very possible. One time might be a coincidence, and 2 times might be an accident, but the coincidences one after another had already shown that someone must be playing tricks here. Thinking about what he had experienced recently, he could basically conclude that someone was holding that magical pen in the dark and arranging his own destiny. Perhaps it was not just his own destiny, but the captain, old Neil, Leonard and others might also have their destinies secretly manipulated. What was the purpose of that person secretly arranging all these things? Klein thought for a while, suppressed all the guesses in his mind, and looked at the second half of the diary. On March 17, my friend Green met a Beyonder enemy from the death path. That enemy was only a Sequence 5 gatekeeper not long ago, but after a while, he was promoted to a Sequence 4 night watchman from the night path. Is this the replacement of Beyonders at a high sequence? Out of curiosity, I asked Green about the specific situation. Green said that in order to be promoted to Sequence 4, the enemy swallowed some sacred ashes and was promoted from a Sequence 5 gatekeeper from the death path to a Sequence 4 night watchman from the night path. On March 21, I had clearly decided to break away from my previous decadent and corrupt life, but when Baron Will came to invite me to the ball, I couldn't help but be moved. Don't get me wrong, I didn't break the oath I made less than 2 days ago because of my close relationship with Baron Will. It's Baron Will's wife, she really fits my aesthetic taste. On March 28, I finally caught a Beyonder of the diviner path. Although this Beyonder is only a Sequence 8 clown, and I have already become a Sequence 4 demigod. Because of my dislike for the Beyonders of the diviner path who only speak half of their words, I made him confess in prison for a month and helped him become a veritable clown. I, Russell, am really a good young man who is willing to help others. Interesting. According to Russell, the death path and the night path can replace each other when they are at a high sequence. And the death path Sequence 5 gatekeeper mentioned later, why does it sound a bit familiar? The captain once said that an archbishop stole the level 0 sealed artifact 008 and defected from the Church of the Goddess of Night. That archbishop seems to be the death path Sequence 5 gatekeeper, right? He is in the same Beyonder path as Ms. Daly. Klein frowned again. Level 0 sealed artifact 008. This item was not shown in the information provided by the captain, and he did not know what type of sealed object it was. Since everything was so coincidental, could this level 0 sealed artifact be the magical pen mentioned in Russell's diary? According to the abilities it displayed, it could definitely be included in the level 0 sealed artifacts. If my guess is true, then the mysterious man hiding in the dark of Tingnan is the archbishop who stole the level 0 sealed artifact 008 and defected. A Sequence 5 gatekeeper holding a level 0 sealed artifact is still hiding in the dark to plan. What is he planning? What is worth his careful planning? The answer is already obvious. The defected archbishop wants to use the ability of the level 0 sealed artifact to make up stories so that he can successfully be promoted to a Sequence 4 night watcher. So he came to Tingnan and set his sights on his own night watcher team. All of this seems to be connected. All of this is also in line with logical reasoning. The reason why I dare not be sure is just because I know too little about some situations. After today's tarot club, I will go to the captain to ask clearly. For example, who is the defected archbishop? What is the level 0 sealed artifact 008? What is there in the things guarded by the night watchers that is worth being remembered by the Sequence 5 gatekeeper? Thinking of this, Klein wanted to end the tarot club immediately. But he still held his temper and continued to watch. In the end, he could only give Russell 2 comments: degenerate, shameless. You can talk freely now. Klein signaled Miss Justice and Mr. Hanged Man to enter the free exchange session. Audrey simply shared the extraordinary knowledge taught by Mr. Hastur, and did not talk about Ms. Furs. Alger chatted with Audrey for a while as usual and made a deal. After thinking for a while, he said, I received intelligence that the great pirate Keelingos, known as Hurricane Admiral, secretly landed and sneaked into Backland. I don't know what he wants to do. Hurricane Admiral Keelingos, one of the 7 pirate generals. Audrey's eyes widened slightly, and she almost couldn't keep the audience's state. Mr. Hanged Man, do you need my help? Yes, I hope you can help me determine his whereabouts and find out his purpose for sneaking into Backland. Alger thought for a moment and added, if you may encounter danger, you can directly interrupt this transaction. I will give you corresponding rewards based on your contribution to this transaction. Okay, I accept this task. Audrey agreed with a smile. She was not very interested in the so-called reward of Mr. Hanged Man. What she cared about was that this was her first commission in the true sense since she came to the Tarot Club. Mr. Fool, if necessary, can you ask your followers for help? Alger looked at Klein. If he is free. Klein just smiled, neither refusing nor agreeing. I will provide you with all the information I know so far. Alger began to tell the information about Keelingos, and Klein listened silently. Little son Derek Berg also listened quietly. Those things were far away from him. Although he was interested, he could not cross the God-forsaken land. Shepherd, the ability you just mentioned is very similar to that of a shepherd with sequence 5 of the secret prayer. Little son finally waited for the knowledge he was familiar with, and began to popularize science for free to Mr. Fool, Miss Justice, and Mr. Hanged Man. Klein was also interested in the extraordinary item of Hungry Creep, but he also knew that the probability of him getting it was very small. After the free exchange session ended, Klein cut off the connection and sat alone on the Saphira Castle to think for a while. He decided to go offline and take a ride to the Blackthorn Security Company to find the captain to verify his guess. On the outskirts of Tingen, there was a house with a green lawn. In its garden, a dark red chimney stood. Behind the window in the bedroom, there was a small desk with an ordinary diary on it. A slightly pale hand, holding a pen, wrote uncontrollably in the diary. That puzzling Klein, that Klein who should have died long ago, he didn't know from which channel he learned about Ince Zangwill and Level 0 sealed artifact 008. Klein set out from home and prepared to take a carriage to the Blackthorn Security Company. He wanted to find the trusted Captain Dunn Smith to learn about the relevant matters. For Ince Zangwill, such an accident is obviously very unfavorable, but he seems to have no ability to stop Klein from meeting Dunn Smith. Is his dark plan about to be exposed? Oh, Ince Zangwill is really pitiful. He doesn't have much wisdom in his head. It seems that he can never think of a way to solve this problem. Here, the hand holding the pen stopped. After pausing for several seconds, he wrote again. Klein met Dunn Smith, whose memory was not very good. In response to Klein's questioning, Dunn Smith only had the following experience. He concealed something because he had lost his memory and did not reveal relevant information to Klein. This was a very reasonable thing. Quote. Klein, who knew a lot of things, only deepened his guess about the whole thing. He did not fully reveal his guess because he was worried that it would attract the attention of Ince Zangwill, who was hiding in the dark. Quote. Klein decided to secretly investigate the matter about Ince Zangwill by himself. He dreamed of the dark red chimney through divination and successfully found Ince Zangwill's hiding place by himself. Quote. In the end, Klein, who was only a Sequence 9 fortune teller and was not good at frontal combat, faced the Sequence 5 gatekeeper Ince Zangwill and was defeated and killed by Ince Zangwill. The writing pen paused again, and the pale hand holding the pen finally retracted. After a long while, the pen that no one held wrote another paragraph on the notebook. Zangwill has a murderous intention towards Klein, who frequently encounters accidents. He is ready to solve the trouble himself to avoid being affected by Klein's plan. But can Zangwill's simple and flawed plan really catch a fortune teller who is good at fortune-telling danger? My name is Henry, and I am a detective. Not long ago, I received a very strange commission. The client is a young man wearing a mask and deliberately speaking in a low voice. He is very cautious, but his disguise is too poor. Of course, as a detective who has to support himself by accepting commissions, out of professional ethics, he will not mock the employer's inadequate disguise skills. Giving the other party a certain sense of security is also a very important point in the transaction. The young employer entrusted me to help him find the correct corresponding position from a picture. The only more conspicuous and identifiable target is the red chimney. In Tingen, there are many red chimneys, and there are also many that match the approximate positions recorded on the picture. It was expensive to take a carriage, so he could only try to find it by walking, which wasted a lot of his time. He searched for several days and marked more than a dozen suspicious points, but he still couldn't find the correct red chimney. This made him wonder if his luck was too bad. Fortunately, today, his luck seemed to be back. He finally found the correct red chimney, and the surrounding environment also corresponded to the elements on the map. He did not choose to go deep into the exploration. After all, the commission he received was just to find the location of the red chimney. £7. I should go to my not very generous young employer to submit the task and ask for the reward I deserve. Have you found the red chimney? Klein received the news and rushed to this private detective agency. Henry took a puff of cigarette and nodded. Yes, I have been walking in the streets and alleys of Tingen during this period. I missed the target several times, but I finally found the place you asked for. Seeing that the commission had been completed, Klein had to pay the £7 fee. He took out £1 banknotes from his pocket expressionlessly, a total of 7 pieces. Although he felt that the £7 was a bit high, he would not go back on his word since he had already agreed to the deal. After leaving the private detective agency, Klein had a correct map to the red chimney in his hand. This was a place that he had divined might contain a major secret, so he had spent a lot of money to entrust a private detective to help. Now, the place had been found. He felt that he should first explore the area nearby to see if there was anything abnormal. After thinking about it, Klein called a carriage and got on the carriage to go. Halfway through the journey, Klein asked the coachman to stop and only paid him half of the fee. He originally wanted to go there alone to investigate, but after thinking carefully, it was too unsafe to go out alone. Besides, he should at least do a divination on the safety of this matter, right? Going to a suspicious place so rashly was not in line with his cautious approach. He felt that he needed to go home first and consider this issue after divination. After thinking about it, he chose to walk home. He had just spent a huge sum of £7, so it would be good to save some money now. After returning home, Klein closed the door, took off his coat, and untied the yellow crystal pendant from his sleeve. He took out a pen and paper and wrote on a blank piece of paper, "It is safe to explore the area near the red chimney." He held the pendulum with his left hand and let the pendant be perpendicular to the divination statement on the paper, almost touching it. Then he gathered his mind, entered into meditation, closed his eyes, and began to repeat silently, "It is safe to explore the area near the red chimney." Over and over again, he opened his eyes and looked at the pendulum, only to see that the yellow crystal pendant was rotating clockwise slightly. This indicated affirmation. The result of the divination showed that it was safe for him to explore the area near the red chimney. Klein put away the yellow crystal pendant, thought for a while, and murmured, "This matter may involve Zangwill, so I'd better be more careful." He felt it was necessary to go to the grey fog for divination, where the divination was not easily affected by extraordinary factors. He packed up his things, opened the door and went to the bathroom, locked the door, walked 4 steps backwards, and came to the grey fog. In the hazy grey fog, in the majestic temple, Klein sat at the top of the bronze long table, with the parchment that had just materialized in front of him. He picked up the round-bellied fountain pen and wrote the divination sentence just now on the parchment. It is safe to investigate the area near the red chimney. Holding the pendulum in his hand, he held the pendant vertically and silently recited the divination sentence several times, so that his spirituality could interact with the spiritual power above everything. When he felt the silver chain in his hand swaying gently, he opened his eyes and looked at the result of this divination. The yellow crystal pendant was rotating counterclockwise, very slowly, as if it was greatly hindered. This result was completely opposite to the result of divination in the real world. This made him sure that if he really went to the area near the red chimney to explore alone, he would definitely encounter danger and might even die. It was a close call. Fortunately, I came to the grey fog to do another divination. Klein was glad for his caution, and at the same time, he was more determined not to take risks easily when encountering something that might be dangerous in the future. Who is interfering with my divination? Is it the defected Archbishop in Zangwill? Is he trying to interfere with me through divination, so as to lead me to the vicinity of the red chimney and then kill me? Klein thought quietly and thought this was the most likely possibility. If his guess came true, it would prove that Ince Zangwill, who was hiding in the dark, had already set his sights on him. This time, he failed to lead him to the red chimney, so he would definitely come up with other ways to deal with him. This was terrible. He couldn't always be on guard against Ince Zangwill's calculations. He should tell the captain everything and let the captain make the decision. It would be best to invite a few powerful extraordinary people to search Tingen thoroughly. It would be even better if Ince Zangwill could be caught. But how should he explain these problems? He couldn't say that he combined the contents of Russell's diary and guessed that Ince Zangwill might be hiding in Tingen and was hiding in the dark to make plans. What if the captain discovered these problems himself? Klein thought for a long time and made a decision. He planned to guide the captain to discover Ince Zangwill's conspiracy, and at the same time, he had to find a way to protect himself so as not to be killed by Ince Zangwill. The red chimney, we can't just leave it alone, right? You can report it to the captain, saying that the red chimney may be related to Antigona's diary. After all, this thing has an unusual connection with me, and it is enough to attract the attention of the captain and others. This should be the best solution to this matter. He did another divination, and the divination statement was, telling the captain the truth will put yourself in great danger. The result of the divination indicated affirmation. He could understand the result of this divination. If he were Ince Zangwill, he would also have murderous intentions towards the extra variables that have always affected his plan. It's very dangerous. Klein sighed, thought about it, and decided to change the divination. Divination statement. Telling Mr. Azek all your guesses will give you safe shelter. The pendulum swung clockwise, and the swing arc was large. This means that after telling Mr. Azek about this matter, he will not have to worry about the threat from Ince Zangwill in the short term. In this way, Klein has an idea. He planned to tell Mr. Azek all his guesses first, and then guide the captain to discover Ince Zangwill's conspiracy after he was safe. Red chimney, inside the house, on the desk in front of the window, the pen wrote on the notebook again. Klein was unexpectedly cautious and did not give Ince Zangwill any chance to deal with him. He seemed to suspect that Ince Zangwill wanted to set a trap to deal with him through some kind of divination. In order to ensure his own safety, he decided to tell Mr. Azek all these things. This was a very wise choice, because Ince Zangwill was very afraid of Mr. Azek and could only hide from him. Alas, poor Ince Zangwill, he successfully attracted the attention of Mr. Azek, and he had to run away and hide his tracks again. Backland. Hasta finally asked someone to find out the current situation of Sheriff Reed and his family. After the incident that day, there was a big explosion in their home. The baby died tragically on the spot, but Sheriff Reed and his lover were lucky to be alive. His lover became mentally ill and became dementia because he could not bear the death of his child. He is now admitted to an orphanage. Chief Reed also resigned from his position as police chief and is now arranged to accompany his lover in an orphanage. Considering Chief Reed's outstanding contributions to the police department gave him a generous sum of money so that Chief Reed and his wife could stay in the welfare home for their retirement. This is official news, and Hasta doesn't know the exact truth. But what is certain is that Sheriff Reed and his lover are still alive. The so-called staying in a welfare home for old age makes people think. It is probably that they are imprisoned and live a free life on the surface, but in fact they are restricted everywhere. This is a very normal and reasonable arrangement. How come Chief Reed and his lover are still alive? Hasta murmured, feeling that something was wrong here. This was not because he hoped that Chief Reed and his family would die, but based on what happened at that time, Chief Reed and his wife had no reason to survive. The baby parasitized by the high-dimensional overlooker, many punishers of the Church of Storms died that day, and hundreds of nearby residents were killed and injured in the big explosion, and this was even after evacuating in advance. Not counting the number of deaths caused by unexplained lightning strikes, fires and other accidents. In the place where Chief Reed and his lover were, there was absolutely no reason to survive, unless the high-dimensional overlooker deliberately kept them alive. Hasta couldn't believe that the high-dimensional overlookers had such a thing as family ties. He would rather believe that the high-dimensional overlookers had left some backup on them. This should also be the thinking of the higher-ups of the Church of Storms, which is why they imprisoned Chief Reed and his wife in an orphanage and supervised them. Oh, I hope there won't be any more trouble. Hasta calmed down and took a carriage to the newly built factory. During this period of time, he had not paid much attention to the factory because of the Gao-dimensional overlooker. Now he had time to take a look at it. Accompanied by Harley's manager, Hasta walked around the factory and learned that the sales of mosquito-repellent powder were pretty good during this period. Among them, the best-selling one is the most expensive one. After all, nobles lack nothing, but they are afraid of losing face, so comparison is inevitable. If he wasn't afraid that Klein would discover that he might be a time traveler in the future, he would also plan to engage in some activities, such as getting a batch of special deluxe editions and holding a lottery to earn Krypton gold. Just buy an ordinary product and you will get a chance to win a lottery. If you are dealing with working-class people who don't have very rich wallets, use naked gold pounds as raffle prizes. You can also learn from the bargaining model of a certain duodual a person, and I believe you will soon capture a large amount of market share. But Hasta just thought about it and did not take action. He is special enough in his own right, so he might as well do less attention-grabbing things. In the afternoon, Hasta went to visit the law firm. Professor Foulin arranged everything and the place was running smoothly. Professor Foulin also planned to recruit a few more lawyers to help next month and expand his business. Regarding these matters, Hasta is relieved to leave it to lecturer Foulin to decide alone, as long as he can earn lovely gold pounds. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, Hasta came to the Brave Bar. He was already considered a regular customer here, so Kaspars came over. Hasta held the wine glass and said with a smile, "Mr. Kaspars, I'm glad to see you here again. It's truly a blessing." Kaspars picked up the wine glass and clinked it with Hasta, with a look of joy on his face after the disaster. That day, lightning was everywhere. His house was fine, but the house next door was directly shattered by lightning. The owner's 2 children, who were only 5 years old, died on the spot. Very poor. Life is also worthless. Hasta chatted with Kaspars for a while, then came to the billiard room to wait for Marich. In about 10 minutes, Marich led his zombie team to arrive. His face looked very unkind, as if he wanted to do something. Hasta preceded him and said, "This glass of wine congratulates us on being alive." With one sentence, Marich, who was originally looking for a little trouble, stopped and said with emotion, "It's really something to be thankful for that you're still alive. Miss Sharon, why didn't I come with you? She has some things to deal with and may not come tonight." Marich pulled up the seat and sat opposite Hasta. The living corpse next to him helped him pass a glass of wine. "Tell me about what you have experienced during this period, and it will also open my eyes." "It's not an eye-opener, but some interesting things did happen." Marich completely gave up the idea of settling a score with Hasta and began to introduce their journey. This time, the Rose School sent people to Backland, which really made them worried, but the Rose School ended up in a worse situation than they did. They were jointly targeted by the three major churches, the Church of the Night Goddess, the Church of Steam and Machinery, and the Church of Storms, and lost many Beyonders in Backland. Sharon and others went out this time. On the one hand, they wanted to take the opportunity to take revenge, and on the other hand, they wanted to save the surviving Temperance members. All this went smoothly, especially in the last few days. I heard that the Eternal Sun Church directly sent several archbishops to the South Continent, and joined forces with the Storm Church, the God of War Church, the Earth Mother Church, the local government army and other forces to jointly launch a cleanup of the Rose School. The scale of this cleanup was much larger than any previous one, and the Rose School of Indulgence suffered heavy losses. If it weren't for her low sequence, Sharon would have taken this opportunity to return to the South Continent. After listening, Hasta asked curiously, "Is there anything different about the Rose School now? They are better at hiding than before. If they hadn't escaped too quickly, they would have been baptized by the sun and the storm." Speaking of this topic, Marich seemed very excited and told Hasta about the dramatic changes in the South Continent this time. Hasta just listened with a smile on his face, thinking of the cooperation between the Superstar Overlord and the Mother Tree of Desire. Now after such a cleanup, the surviving extraordinaries of the Rose School must be hiding very deeply, and it is estimated that it will be difficult to catch the Superstar Overlord tail. It is a bit worrying that we don't know what the Superstar Overlord is doing. I don't know when Bernadette will be promoted to level 2, otherwise Bernadette can go to the Southern Continent to explore and find out the plan of the Superstar Overlord and the Mother Tree of Desire. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Hasta finished chatting with Marich and took a carriage back home. As soon as he walked up to the second floor, he vaguely felt a familiar breath in the study. Maybe Sharon is here. It seems that she still likes to stay in the mirror. Hasta walked into the study, closed the door, and then sat on the sofa opposite the mirror. After sitting quietly for a few minutes, Sharon's shadow appeared in the mirror. This time she did not flash and disappear again, but looked at Hasta curiously. "Does your breath seem to have changed? A lot of things have happened during this period. I have had some adventures and learned to hide my breath." Sharon did not delve into this issue, but said, "Tell me what happened in Backland during this period." In the mirror, Sharon was also sitting on the sofa, facing Hasta across the mirror. Hasta had an illusion that the space he was in was the world and the mirror. He suppressed this strange feeling, thought about it and started from the night when the superstar shone in the night sky. Sharon's knowledge of mysticism was obviously several levels higher than Marich's. Through Hasta's slightly processed description, she vaguely guessed something, but she didn't dare to think deeply. The more she listened to Hasta's description, the stranger she felt. She also looked up at the starry sky that night, but she didn't have the immersive feeling that Hasta had. Especially after Hasta's narration, the night that was presented again seemed a little different, as if the fog had been lifted and something more essential was seen. When Hasta finished, Sharon looked at him deeply. Your eyes seem to be able to see a more magical world. Maybe I am better at making associations. Your description is wonderful. That's because I added a lot of fictional elements to ordinary days, which makes the story of Backland more magical and interesting. Sharon thought for a while and said, then you should be a writer. It's a pity that I have become a lawyer, otherwise I really want to depict a different world through writing. You can write some short stories. Sharon tried to mention this in a calm tone. Hasta was very sensitive to Sharon's tone. Sharon seemed to be looking forward to writing short stories herself. She likes to listen to stories. Hasta thought for a moment and said tentatively, I have indeed imagined many interesting and imaginative stories in my mind. Then you should write these stories, don't waste your imagination, it is a rare talent. But I am a bit lazy, and it is extremely painful for me to stay at my desk and write every day. If you have time, you can write again. If I have to restrict myself, I may not be able to write a story in a month. Sharon was silent for a while and said lightly, if I have time, I can urge you to write. Hearing this, Hasta understood. Miss Sharon, this is to like listening to stories. This little hobby is a bit like a child's love of listening to fairy tales. This hobby is quite good. It's a good opportunity to try to bribe Sharon. Once the link is established, you might be able to spy on her true emotional changes. She is now like a puppet. Although she sometimes shows a slight expression, it is often difficult to read her specific emotional fluctuations. Hasta quickly made a decision in his mind and said with a smile, of course, I can. I think with Miss Sharon's supervision, I might be able to write an interesting story in less than 3 days. Sharon just nodded, not showing any joy about this matter. Now is it time for Miss Sharon to tell me about your adventures outside? Although Marriage mentioned it once, Hasta also wanted to hear Sharon's version of the adventure story. It wasn't until after 11 o'clock that Sharon left the mirror after telling her adventure story. Before leaving, she specifically mentioned that Bernadette would leave Backland soon, so that he would no longer need to deliberately avoid her in the future. After seeing Sharon off, Hasta checked the time, returned to the bedroom, lay on the bed, and entered the Palace of Stars. A lot of things have happened recently, and it's time to talk to the Mother Tree of Desire and the Superstar Lord. As for the Jinn, after Bernadette is successfully promoted to Sequence 2, it will probably be more difficult for him to come out and cause trouble. The Hall of Stars. The chain of order flew out from behind Hasta and landed on the 3 stars, attracting the Mother Tree of Desire, the Superstar Master, and the Jinn to come. When the 3 outer gods came to the Hall of Stars and took their seats, Hasta was the first to look at the Jinn. Today's Jinn is obviously not as high-spirited as before, and has become a bit taciturn. He probably feels that his situation is worrying. It was still difficult for people to read the Mother Tree of Desire's thoughts. The Superstar Lord glanced at the Jinn god lightly and said nothing. Without the Jinn to speak first to enliven the atmosphere, the Hall of Stars first fell into a brief silence, and then Hasta's exit broke the silence and spread. A wonderful collaboration. The Jinn's eyes moved slightly, and he hummed quietly without saying anything. The cooperation between the Mother Tree of Desire and the Superstar Master is undoubtedly a great success. Not only was he unable to use this opportunity to break away from the seal of the wishing lamp, but because Bernadette was promoted to Sequence 2, the seal became even stronger, and now he can even manifest into a void. Shadow can't do it. Has truly become Bernadette's prisoner. The Superstar Master glanced at the Jinn god and said calmly, "It's just a small attempt." The Mother Tree of Desire did not miss the opportunity to suppress the Jinn. The Evil One has taken the risk to attack Backland and caused the divine punishment of the storm. As a result, he was severely damaged. And you seem to be still imprisoned in the wishing lantern? The genie of the lamp turned completely grim and said in a bad tone, "Oh, It's not that your stupid son has no ability. He clearly had the opportunity to take away the magical lamp of wishing, but he was discovered by the storm and caused the divine punishment of the storm. The mother tree of desire acted very generously this time and did not argue with the jinn. She just said calmly, "The evil god has been severely damaged and cannot take action for a short time. The cooperation between you and me ends here." The jinn felt aggrieved, but had nothing to say. He teamed up with the mother tree of desire to target Bernadette several times, but was unable to do anything to Bernadette. Instead, she found an opportunity to advance to sequence 2. With the powerful sealed object in her hands, it is no longer as difficult to escape from the evil god Sia. Now that the Rose School is jointly targeted by the 7 righteous churches, it is in a worrying situation. Ending cooperation is a normal decision. Wait a few more years, and I might be able to help you get back the wishing lamp. The Superstar Lord spoke, his words full of ridicule towards the jinn. The jinn god counterattacked without showing any signs of weakness. "Humph, I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on until then. I still have this bit of confidence. Haha, blind arrogance will only bring you failure." Like you? The jinn really wanted to curse, but now the situation was stronger than the human. The mother tree of desire clearly stands firmly on the side of the superstar master, and the returner of the stars remains neutral. He is the only one fighting alone. Hastur was silently eating the melon. He finally understood that the jinn, the son of chaos, was definitely not very popular among the stars at the beginning. This superstar master obviously deliberately squeezed the jinn, otherwise it would be difficult for him to be so active with his temperament. Don't be happy so early. The high-dimensional overlookers are also casting their gazes from the stars, watching your every move. The jinn changed the topic and deliberately mentioned the high-dimensional overlookers, obviously trying to muddy the water. The mother tree of desire said calmly, "It's just spying, just ignore him." With a thought in his mind, Asta deliberately used the power of the Palace of Stars to manifest the stars where the high-dimensional overlooker was located in the Palace of Stars. The mother tree of desire, superstar master, and jinn all looked at him. "Tisk, it's just a line of latitude hanging down. It seems that he is very cautious." This is the voice of the jinn, and it feels like we are brothers. It is easier for him to invest his power within the initial barrier than it is for us. A dispersed force is not enough to become a threat. The Superstar Lord gave a calm evaluation and did not care that the high-dimensional overlooker had appeared within the initial barrier. Listening to these words, Hastur gained a deeper understanding of the state of the high-dimensional overlooker. It's very suitable to help us distract the Church of the 7 Gods. The mother tree of desire had an idea. He is in the starry sky and has never regarded the so-called 7 gods as opponents, but his followers cannot. Now that the 7 gods are cooperating, if he is not careful, the Rose School of indulgence that he has influenced will be completely destroyed. If you want to cooperate with him, you must tell him something that he is interested in. The lamp god said, deliberately looking at Hastur. His meaning is very clear. If the mother tree of desire really reaches a cooperation with the high-dimensional overlooker, then it must be by selling out the existence of the Hall of Stars in exchange for this cooperation opportunity. Hastur looked at the mother tree of desire, waiting for his words. The mother tree of desire stated, "I will not be so stupid." If he really reaches a cooperation with the high-dimensional overlooker by selling out the news of the return of the stars, then he dares to be sure that as soon as he reaches a cooperation, the return of the stars will pull the high-dimensional overlooker to the Hall of Stars. At that time, his situation will be very embarrassing. Moreover, the current Hall of Stars is more in line with his needs. He and the Superstar Overlord suppress the Lamp God, so that he can have a greater say in the gathering of stars. If there is another high-dimensional overlooker, this situation will be broken. The lamp god said disdainfully. Who knows? Asta looked at the mother tree of desire meaningfully. My game with him is not over yet. The implicit threat made the mother tree of desire feel a little uneasy. He and the superstar overlord have not yet figured out the details of this star returner, and they don't want to arouse his hostility. I also hate people who destroy the balance of the game. The lamp god smiled happily. Just like the game between you and Weird, the superstar overlord knows how to insert a knife into the lamp god's lungs at the right time. The lamp god was angry and furious, but he couldn't do anything about the superstar overlord. The mother tree of desire also added, "It is said that you took the initiative to jump into the wishing lamp? This kind of gameplay is really unique." The lamp god was very frustrated, and finally just snorted coldly, ignoring the provocation of the superstar overlord and the mother tree of desire. Asta held back his smile and said calmly, "Under the gaze of the stars, everything is like a game. Compared to games, I prefer destruction." With just this sentence, Hasta understood that this superstar overlord is the most determined destroyer among the three outer gods. The lamp god tried his best just to return to the starry sky, and the mother tree of desire wanted to take back his source and extraordinary path. They didn't care whether the earth was destroyed. Only the superstar overlord had already prepared to present a firework to the entire universe when the initial barrier disappeared. "Hey, madman!" The lamp god gave a very appropriate evaluation. "Don't worry, that planet seems to have many secrets." The mother tree of desire also disagreed with the concept of the superstar overlord. The superstar lord chuckled and said, "Perhaps the so-called secret is just a coincidence." The lamp god looked at the superstar lord with an idiotic look, and said with a mocking face, "At first, I woke up here, and God and the secret chose this place to make further attempts. Do you think they are dumber than you?" This time, the mother tree of desire did not speak. It was obvious that he had the same idea as the lamp god. Otherwise, why would there be a circle of outer gods around the outside of the initial barrier? Many of them exist and do not need the source in extraordinary ways here. They came here because of the initial choice of God and the secret. Whether witnessing or participating in person, they all want to take a peek at the secrets hidden here. The superstar lord did not get angry, and said calmly, "When everything explodes, no matter what the secret is, it will be exposed in the starry sky. You are so rude, aren't you afraid that the secrets here will be destroyed by you? Things that can be easily destroyed are not worth God and the secret staying here." The superstar lord's point of view is very clear. When the initial barrier disappears, the entire planet will be blown up first, and then the so-called secrets will be searched.